Hello and welcome. I'm very happy to have you here. Could you please state your name, introduce us, and what are you currently working on?
Hello, my name is Fawzi. Great to be here. I'm a game designer. I've been in the industry around 20 years-ish, like working on a lot of different things. Currently the VP of Editorial at Ubisoft, working on multiple projects across the company, helping creatives bring their visions to life. The upcoming game that I'm working on is Mario & Rabbids Sparks of Hope, coming up October 20th.
It's very fast, it's less than a month. Congrats, looking forward to the game. But prior to that, since you have a lot of expertise in this industry, you worked mostly on mobile games which are hugely popular, such as Candy Crush Saga, Persona 3 Social, from a very popular Atlas franchise, and also My Little Pony, which was my kind of a first go-to real mobile gaming, so to say. So do you have any kind regards about talking about that? You know, what was it like to work on such amazing different games and franchises for mobile games?
It's good to thank you for asking this question. Like, I worked on a lot of different things throughout my career. Like, I worked on Flash games, PSP games, console games, AAA, portable. So, like, you know, for me, it's all mediums. What matters is, like, you know, delivering the gameplay experience to the players. And funny enough, like, a lot of people ask me, like, what are one of the games that you're the most proud of? And one of the games I mention usually is My Little Pony. And it's because, you know, like, it's not the game that I, like, you know, I grew up, I wanted to make this game. Like, I went into the industry thinking that I want to make this game one day. But I think it symbolizes a lot what we do. Which, like, when I was asked to be the designer on this game, I was like, okay, I know nothing much about this franchise. So that's why I need to know everything and, like, become a fan myself. So, like, you know, I watched all the shows. I went and, like, got all the toys. And then I discovered, like, you know, that the fans of the show, that they're not only, like, you know, the target demographic of little kids, but they're also, like, 30-plus-year-old males called the bronies, which I never knew was a thing. So I was like, right, I need to also understand these guys, and, like, you know, got to meet them, went to brony meetups. I was, like, on on the brony subreddit, and there's also, like, you know, older female players called the Pegasus Sisters. So I think that symbolizes the passion for the game development, is that, like, I don't know anything about this franchise, so I need to know everything about it to create the game that does it justice. I think I can still name 500 ponies and their cutie marks still. And I think, like, you know, when the players noticed that, so when we launched the game and they saw a lot of hints into the subculture, we became canon, you know, like, in a lot of ways in the game that we made. And it's always about this. Like, I worked later in my career on a Spider-Man game. It was very similar. I worked on very popular franchises later on. It's always about the same. How do you, like, you know, worked on Battlefield and other franchises like that. It was always about delivering on what is the player expectations, getting to understand our players a lot more and delivering that core experience.
Because these are a lot of different genres for different platforms, for different, you know, devices. And since you're really experienced in that kind of stuff, you even wrote a book which was published also in Arabic, which is also big news because you don't have a lot of media representation of that kind of work, especially in these kind of languages. So what was it like if you need to compare the bigger established franchises in comparing to, for example, other ones? Do you have any, you know, fond memories, or what was it like for you to be like you told us for My Little Pony, for example, and other stuff? Before we talk about the book, what is it like to work with so much different genres and different platforms?
I think, you know, like, ultimately it's about delivering fun experiences to the players. So, like, getting to play a lot of, like, to create a lot of different types of games allowed me to work with a lot of different game mechanics, and then, like, made me a lot more horizontal as a game designer. So it made me, like, you know, understand a lot more. And this part of my personal passion is that I love to learn, and I love to get to always improve on my knowledge and not being, like, focused on learning a single type of experience. So yeah, I think it just ultimately made me a better designer to be able to do different types of games and just go into, like, these different types of experiences.
since that a lot of experience, what was it like? Were you inspired to write this book? What were the reasons that you actually wrote it and published it, and how are the results? Let's talk about the book. Tell us the name.
So in 2018 I released my book called Al-Khallab fi fan tasmim al-al'ab, or Al-Khallab in the art of game design. It's the first book to be written about the topic in Arabic. And the reason why I wanted to do that is that when I started out, there wasn't that much game development in the region almost at all. And everything I've learned as a game developer was either trying to get books in English or wherever I can find them, or just try to make games and fail and learn from them and iterate. So I just wanted to kind of save people from going through this hassle of, if they want to access this knowledge, they don't have to learn another language to do so. I want just to put a game design 101, so to say, in Arabic for people to access. And I wrote it in traditional Arabic so that people from over 28 countries will be able to read it and to get to know a little bit about game design without hopefully going through a lot of the mistakes and the trial and error that I had to go through. So a lot of the work that I do, whether it's in writing books or in helping teams or mentoring or doing talks or conferences, is that I want to be the person I wish I met when I started out, and writing that book was one of them. So in addition to writing the book, I made the entire content of it in video format, and I made it as a 1-week crash course in game design, and I made that available for free. So if people can't read it, they can watch it. For me, it's about getting the knowledge out there. And I was blown away by the reception. I thought maybe a couple of 100 copies and that's it, but it's still going strong. People are still relating a lot to it. I still get people taking pictures with it and sending it to me or telling me that it encouraged them to start. And ultimately, I think that's what really made me. It made all the work worth it, so to say.
What about those expertise? The industry is everlasting changing, design also. So what is it like to work for something and you also learn from everything? And what would you think in these upcoming years, what will be the next trends or something? Can you probably see what will be in trending, or is it just okay, we're gonna make a game and see what will happen with it?
I think in the games industry, we're always playing a little bit of forecasting because we're at the forefront, we're at the end of the cutting edge of technology. So there's always something going on, and we're always trying to see what is the next big thing and how we go there. I think there's a big changes in the landscape right now in terms of consolidation of content with the way the Game Pass is going on, or what Sony is doing and all of that. There's a lot of different ways of content to be available for players, and that's only get more and more apparent. And I think that's very exciting to get games to people in a way that we've never seen before. Cloud technology and fast internet is only going to be a thing more and more. So seeing where that plays along is very exciting. It's never a dull moment. So all we know is that the games industry is going to be radically different every couple of years, and we're all in for it.
What about the book? Do you plan on putting some, updates? What is it like? Do you have a lot of more energy or free time actually to also make another parts of it? Or have you seen any, waves of people who try to do something similar just to open it up for other people who maybe do not speak English at the moment, or they're not in an opportunity to, travel worldwide or something that they have at the local points of their places?
So the first part of your question, I'm currently working on another book. This time it's in English, and it's due to be out in 2024. Working in collaboration with CRC Press, and it's a notable print house that specializes in game development and design books. This is a topic I've been researching for a couple of years. It's about the creative process. It's one of the reasons why I'm here. I was doing a talk on the topic. Wanted to see how people resonate with that book. So I'm very excited about that. I'm in the process of writing it, and hopefully for the people that were in the talk today, they seem to resonate well with it. So I think I'm onto something. Hopefully it'll hit the store shelves after 2024 by the time I hit my deadline. So fingers crossed on that. And yeah, like the second part of your question, I've been getting in touch with a lot of local academics in different regions of the world that are now either working in collaboration in terms of like, getting different types of written material that I have available in their local language. But I've also got in touch with some writers in various places in Europe, also outside, that are now working on a book in their own language actually. And some asked me to write the foreword as part of it because they kind of wanted to do something similar. So I'm floored, honored by that. That's not what I expected at all. Yeah, and it's great that it's happening.
And for our last question, what is it like? You're here for the first time, or have you been prior maybe to other Reboot Dev Blues in prior years? Or what was it like for you to be here after all the talk and being with people? What are your experiences, and what's your mentality about this?
Oh, that's cool. So this is my first reboot. Actually, it used to happen on the same time as the Berlin Games Week, and I used to work in Berlin, so I used to, unfortunately, unable to attend. But this time I came, and oh my God, I was missing out. It's great. Dubrovnik is beautiful. Just the drive from the airport here, I was like, my God, the scenes here are wonderful. And it's a very chill event. Everybody's relaxed. Like they're getting together, they're networking. I will never miss it again, for sure. No, I love it.
Thanks a lot. Exciting news. Looking forward to your book, and see you later at the party.
Thank you. See you later.
Hello, welcome. Could you please state your name and the current work you're working at, or what are you doing?
Yeah, hi, I'm Rami Ismail. I'm an independent developer, and I'm currently a consultant for independent games.
You are a very vocal person in writes about in video game industry, since it's very infamous about the working crunch forces, situations with some illegal activities that happen in big independent companies. So before we started talking about that, you also had with your colleague a very successful launch of your game, which was in 2013, if I'm not. So could you tell me more about that experience that kind of skyrocketed you into mobile gaming?
Yeah, my previous game studio, Vlaambeer, it was founded back in 2010. We had made a few games up until that point, but nothing that was really successful. And we had a Flash prototype called Radical Fishing that was really fun, and we decided to bring it to iOS because the App Store then was brand new. And we called it Ridiculous Fishing. We started working on it, and it was actually a really hard development. It started really well, but then a company in the US somewhere saw the idea and stole it. They just cloned it and made pretty much an exact copy of it. And yeah, that was not very good. It was it was demoralizing. And I think we were young and we didn't quite know how important motivation is yet. So when it happened, both me and my co-founder at the time just immediately burned out, and we couldn't really make games for like 6 months to a year. It was really hard. I don't know. I tried to become a game developer for most of my life, and then to sort of mess it up in 3 years was really it was really difficult on us. But we ended up I think the best thing that happened is we got angry. We got really angry about it, and we went to the press, we started talking, and we went to all the press because we thought we were going to be out of the games industry, so we thought we're just going to talk to everybody. So we even reached out to the New York Times and big international press, and it became a really big moment in games as far as standing behind creative work goes. So the industry sort of galvanized behind us. We turned from 2 indies with a bunch of small games into 2 voices in the games industry. And then Ridiculous Fishing launched, and the entire industry got behind it. And it was, for 2 kids, it was a monster hit. It was ridiculous how much support we got.
It's more of a story about keep going and fight against the situation, because since you're a consultant for the smaller companies and smaller video games, it's quite, sad to see a lot of them being flushed out by bigger companies. And what is currently the state, for example, in Europe, since you also work mostly in Europe, of the state of the indie companies and their functionality, their financial stuff, social network stuff. What would you say? How is it like in 2022 be an small indie developer?
I mean, it's strange. It's a difficult question because it's easier than ever to be an independent developer. It's just harder than ever to be a successful independent developer. I think the trick really is that for a lot of indies, they have this idea that the job is to make a game and then get rich. And if you aim at that, it's not going to work. I think a lot of indies are starting to realize that the trick is to make games that allow you to make the next game while living somewhat comfortably. And I think the industry is not in a really good place for indies right now. There's a lot of consolidation, a lot of companies being bought, a lot of competition. Publishers are putting a lot of money into indie games. So unless you have that type of funding, it's really hard to compete with other indies. Obviously, you're dealing with 10 to 15 years of independent developers with lots of experience. So when you're just coming up, the risk is very high right now. Regardless, the beauty of indie is that it's an artistic field, so people will do it anyway. But I think what indies really need right now is sort of that reality check. If you're probably not going to make money, if you're going to do this, make sure you get the money up front, work with publishers, work with funds, work with grants. Don't try to make your dream game right out of the gate. Start. Build your company, build your team, get some experience, get some reputation, and then work from there, because just what we did doesn't work anymore. It's annoying, but you can't do what Vlaanderen did in 2022. It's just not possible.
It's a different state of affairs. It's been almost more than a decade. So do you think these kind of events in which, such as Reboot Develop Blue is a boutique experience for game devs, is it your first time here, or are you experienced in other perhaps conferences that were here in these parts of country?
Yeah, no, I've been to the region very frequently, and I mean, this is my 6th reboot. I love the event. It's probably my favorite game event of the year every year. And I think that what's important is, it brings together a lot of people from the region, and it's a region where a lot of access to knowledge is still relatively limited, and not by the people themselves, but just a lot of international companies don't necessarily focus as much on the region. They're not as easy with funding games from the region. And having an event like Reboot, sort of creating the prestige and the community that you need to get outside investors to look at the region is really, really helpful. It's also just such a low pressure environment. Reboot is really big. There's a lot happening, but it's very opt-in. You can choose if you want to showcase a game, you can just go and showcase a game. If you just want to go look at some talks and learn a bit, you can do that. If you just want to meet with people and have lunch somewhere outside of the venue, you can do that. So it's really, really sort of opt-in, choose your own event. And I really love that. It's really rare that an event sort of hits that balance well.
Since you've really been, from the bottom to the top, and then you're experiencing those smaller situations with smaller indie companies, and your counseling is the way it is, would you also say that it's also part of a problem that a lot of gaming companies, since it's a huge industry, more than 50 years, it's also part of the problem that a lot of people have that approach, like a local room mentality with their ideas and workforce, but they do not implement the usual business hierarchy and stuff that actually happens in other businesses, but they just go with the flow, and everything kind of went realistically crazy.
Yeah, I think so. I think the biggest problem isn't necessarily that they make the wrong choices, that they don't make choices. A lot of indies, when they're starting a business, they just kind of run with what they're doing right now. So if they're a student team, they're taking this school mentality into business. That doesn't work. You're not getting graded, you're paying for your rent with what you're doing. So I think in a lot of cases, it's not that they're making the wrong choices, it's that they're just sort of accepting how things are. And if you're running a business, you can't do that. It's a decision-making job, and you have to pick, what are we going to support? How are we going to do it? What decision are we making? How are we funding it? Whether you do that as a flat hierarchy, a co-op, a traditional company, whether you have a top-down structure or a flat structure, I don't care. Like it's not my job to care about how people want to run their studio. As a consultant, my job is to make sure that it's intentional, that they're making choices and that they have a goal and that what they're doing aligns with those goals. And if that's good, then all power to you. Like I would love to see somebody run a company completely different from how I would do it and then be super successful. That would make me so happy because it just gives evidence that it doesn't really matter how, you just have to have intention.
I have this feeling that the indie gaming business is actually the one that lets people be creative, other than the negative aspects of business and work, which is are those marks that we need to have indies in prior to have a lot of versatility, creativeness, new mechanics, something to keep the gaming industry fresh, since you know that the AAA games usually have the same formula and same issues in production and development.
I mean, AAAs have so much more risk than us indies. So, like when we say like, oh, we're going to make a game, it might not sell well. 3 people might not be earning money and, it's a bit risky. But when a AAA does it and it misses, that's 300 people out of a job. So I understand why the dynamics are as they are. And I think a lot of indies are inspired by AAA, right? Like Elden Ring is relatively defining for the year. Zelda will be a big deal for a lot of indies. So we learn from AAA and then we do cool, interesting new stuff, and then AAA learns from that. That's how things like PUBG eventually grows into now Call of Duty having it and Battlefield having it. So for me, that cycle is really beautiful. I love that about the games industry, that everybody sort of respects the work, and we can be a little rough on each other sometimes. Indie and AAA have this weird like rivalry that I personally don't really care about the distinction, but to me, I think the games industry is so creative because it's a necessity for games that there are creative people from so many different disciplines. So if you're doing music, you're working with musicians. If you're writing, you're working with writers. If you're making a movie, yeah, you're working with audio and visual people and some technical people. But with games, you have to work with programmers and designers and writers and music and all these processes. And all of those people are bringing different creativity into the process. And that just makes it a very like potent ground for weirdness, which I think ultimately that's what the games industry does really well. It's just weirdness. It's like, okay, we'll do a game about backstabbing each other on a spaceship, and here's Among Us. And I just love that. It makes me so happy.
It also depends, about the public. And since we got, after the pandemic, a lot of freshly income of players, no matter the age, ethnicity, whatever, actually, what would you say that your biggest challenges are when you go and find and work for the smaller companies? Like you said before, that the problem is start small and then build around a house. But what are some kind of advices for those people if they want to, since you're here with us?
Right. Yeah, I think the first thing is intentionality, like be intentional about what you're doing and think about things early. Visibility is one of your biggest risks as an independent developer, not getting attention, not getting press. So from the start, when you're prototyping, you should be thinking about, okay, how is this game different? How can I talk about it? How can I sell this to people? When players play this game, how would they describe it to their friends, right? Like those are kind of questions you can think about very early that can really help you further down the line. And they're not opposite to your creative. It's not like, oh, we have to do marketing, now we're doing the business stuff. No, your marketing is part of your game. The way people talk about your game sets the expectations of players. So that's one. The other one is, I wish indies would stop thinking that they can only earn money after they ship the game. Obviously, your negotiations with your publishers when they're going to fund your game, or with grants or with funds or anything, you can ask for more money than you need. That's okay. There's no rule that says like you have to ask for exactly. You can keep a little margin, make a little profit early in your development, and then be a little safer at the other end, because you don't just have to have enough money to finish the game. You need enough money to finish the game and start on your next one to sell it. So you need that extra time.
For our last question, are you quite content with the state of current speakers, people from Dave here about your idea? Because I see we have a lot of indie publishers with us. So would you say that the indie, even though it has its own problems, is kind of also thriving with creativity and people, and also publishers who actually want to keep the games good or just fun and easier to play?
Yeah, I mean, the beauty of indie is that the indies will always be creative. Like, you have to be creative to be an indie. Like, it's frankly not a smart decision to become an independent developer. Like, it's economically risky. You have to really care about game development. Teams are complicated. Publishing is complicated. Visibility is hard. You really have to want to be an independent developer to be an independent developer. The publishers are good. Like, I think the one benefit they give is that they can take some of the risk away by funding your game. So it's nice that they're here. I think they mostly exist because they exist. So, because there are publishers, indies need publishers. If there were no publishers, we would not need publishers because we wouldn't be competing with publishers. So I'm happy they're here.
Is it a bittersweet, like a big brother, little brother, or brothers and sisters situation in the family?
Yeah, it really is. Like the thing is, when I started, the point of indie was to not need publishers, to not be dependent on anybody saying you can make this, you cannot make that. You choose to make it, and then you had the risk. And like, obviously, that's nice if I'm from the Netherlands, where if it doesn't work out, the state will take care of you. But like for a lot of people around the world, that's just not the reality. So a system like this is preferable to the old system. Part of me still wishes even the indie publishers would take a bit more risk and would try a bit more to do things that are new. Because even in indie, you're starting to get the flavor of the month. Like this is the game that's coming out, and then 3 of them come out in a week because everybody took the same bet. And I know it's hard to take risks. Like, if you've been in the industry, you've invested in games, you've greenlit games, you realize how hard it is to make risky choices, but we will always hope for more risky choices. That's it.
Thanks for your time. Hope you're having a blast, and see you at the party this evening. Hello, welcome. Thanks for coming to our little show. Please, can you introduce yourself and tell me where do you work and where do you come from?
Yeah, hi, and thanks for having me. My name is Marc-André De Blois. I'm a French-Canadian game designer. I work for a company called Panache Digital Gamesu. We are based in Montreal, and I'm, like I told you, I'm a game designer.
Is this your first time being here on this parts of Europe or in this kind of conferences, or are you experienced in those kinds of events? Please, to tell me your experiences in game design and being here.
Actually, yes, it's my first time here in Croatia. It's my first time at Reboot here at Dubrovnik. Never been to a lot of conference or event like that, so it's very interesting to be here to discover this beautiful country and every people that is here. It's amazing to meet them and talk with them. Yeah.
Because Canada is a long way from here. And do you see some differences or similarities with game devs throughout the country, like here in the whole European country, or in Canada, in America, or maybe China? Is there any differences in these type of events when you work and you talk to other people, or is it something it just depends about the vibes and themes, or even your work as we speak?
To be honest, I haven't seen much difference because, wherever the country you're from, we are all developing games that are published worldwide. So we have that in common. If it's an app game, a mobile game, a game for PC, even if it's made in Russia or South America, we still share the same, the same game design mechanic, the same way of perceiving interaction. So I haven't been able to, fully see if there's cultural difference can impact the way of making game. In a way, for me, we are all brother here and sisters because we are evolving into the same industry.
What is it like to be a game designer? Do you have some tips and tricks for newbies, newcomers, or anyone who wants to better himself or themselves, or to be more experienced? What is it like for you to work in gaming?
For me personally, I think that the best tricks would not be to look at everything else that has been done before. The trick would be to identify your own intents. When you want to make a game, what is it inside you that make you vibrate? And then try to identify how you can translate that emotion, that sensation into game mechanics. It should be this way. It should not be, oh, I'm going to make a shooter and then I'm going to create a story later. No, it's the other way around. You have to be able to identify what it is within you that makes you vibrate, and try to identify which kind of mechanics, what kind of interaction, which kind of environment you should create that will embody the idea that you have in your mind. So the best trick is try to know yourself, try to be as humble as possible, and try to be smart about the decision you're making while crafting your game.
I would say that making games is particularly sometimes hard and very time consuming, because it takes a lot of time, you know, to do something from scratch to the latest product. So what about some challenges of being a game designer when there is something that you cannot do, or it takes a lot of time? Does it really depends on the expertise of people, or sometimes it's just, you know, help from any above side, like a bit of a luck, a bit of a happiness or something?
To be honest, I think that basically having an idea, it's not that hard. The best, the greater challenge is to develop this idea, because as a game designer, I don't code, I don't write, I don't create the lightning, I do nothing, basically. So we need to work with other peoples, and they too are creator, they too are game developer. So the challenge is to work with them, to make them embrace your vision, and to be open to modify your vision to fit theirs, and to create a sense of team. And that takes some time, that takes some works, because you cannot do a game all by yourself. So the most difficult thing that need to be taken care of, it's not, of course, technology is important. Of course, the idea that you have need to be improved and need to be fun. But the most precious asset you have is the way you work with your team, because it's with them that the game will grow and be better. Because they too have feedback, they too have emotion and have perception, and you have to take that into account.
Would you say that video games are a part of art, also such as movies, series, pictures? I mean, everything is in artistic way together made into a game, right? So what is your opinion about that?
You know, Andy Roall, once in a while, took a Campbell soup, put it in a frame, and said, this is art. Okay, so if this is art, maybe video game are also art. To be honest, I don't really care about if it's art or no. What I care is when we create a game, we have the power to give some experience to the user. We have the abilities to make them feel and maybe see life in a different ways that he has not seen it before. So if the result of that process is called art, so be it. If it's called something else, I still don't care, because I still get to do what I like to do, which is create experience, you know.
Thank you for your time. Hope you enjoy your stay here and the party after it.
Thanks a lot.
Hello and welcome. Thank you for coming. Could you please tell us your name and state the game dev company that you're currently working with?
Yeah, sure. Hello. So my name is Pawel. I'm a studio director and co-founder of PixelAnt Games. We're part of Sumo family.
You are such a huge and experienced game developer. Well, you told me that you've been working for more 20 years. Congratulations. And you also worked on some big names in gaming. So what is it like when you first started out to be on those big AAA video games? And could you more tell me about those experiences prior to your current work at PixelAnt?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so basically, right now we're working with Sumo Digital, and we have the chance to look into different size of games. Currently, we're supporting something like 12 games in the development, including our own IP. and they're like different sizes. And what's good about the smaller sizes games is they're easier because there's like the less in the backlog. There's like less topics to discuss, and you can manage it in a more like comfortable way, let's say, right? But also, what is very important is that the smaller projects or small or mid-sized projects, they're like shorter when it comes to their production time frame, right? So you can basically, you're not like exhausted with one project being made like for 5, 7 or 10 years, but you can learn from the project like that lasts 2-3 years. You can close it down, go to holidays, and then start something all over again with a different, maybe different team, but with the experiences that you gained.
So is it your first time here being at the Reboot Develop Blue, or have you been to other similar conferences, and what are your thoughts and experiences from your kind of perspective being here as also one of the attendants and also participating in this chit-chat of the boutique conference?
Yeah, so at Reboot, I guess this is my 4th or 5th time. I really like the conference because of Dubrovnik and the weather here, and this is great atmosphere, especially in the Sheraton lobby. We can talk and bump to each other very often for the 2-3 days of the conference. So it's a great place to do the business development, basically, right? And networking. It's a fantastic place. But also, I just had a talk, so there is also a chance to share some of the knowledge and hear from other developers. But yeah, in general, I attend like a lot of conferences. I really like to share what we're doing and also learn from others. So I attended, I don't know, DevCom, Gamescom, and also Digital Dragons. We're heading with my partner and co-founder to Gamescom Asia next month, right? So there's like a lot of traveling. Finally, after COVID, that we can allow to travel and meet in person, which is fantastic.
Please look at your work at Pixel Art. You told me that you are working also on bigger AAA stuff, AA. What is it like to do it simultaneously? Like you told me that it's mentally draining for people to work on one particular stuff. So is it challenging? Is it dynamic? What is it like to have juggling between different games? Is it refreshing, or just a fun time to do since you're really experienced in what you do?
Yeah, that's a great question, because this is something that we experienced like for the first time at PixelAnt Games. We started the studio 2 years ago, and majority of the people that we hired, they've been working in a single company for 10, 15, 20 years, right? And yeah, we decided to create a multi-project studio. And the idea for that is to learn and share between different teams, from different technologies. We're working on different genres at the same time for different platforms. And it's very much aligned with our values, which is, for example, keep growing yourself and your skills. We give people the ability to learn from different opportunities, basically. But of course, it is challenging as well, right? For example, we don't have like the whole team, like the whole studio is working on one game. So we need to maintain this sense of belonging to PixelAnt Games, right? When our developers are being part of the teams within Sumo, for example, and they're helping for different projects, they're not feeling as a part of PixelAnt Games team, right? So what we do is we try to gather everybody on Monday meetings and share business updates. On Wednesday meeting, we have HR updates and talking about the benefits and policies that we introduced to the studio for PixelAnt Games developers. On Friday meetings, we have lightning talks, and we can share knowledge not only related to work, but also about the hobbies, or I don't know, how to invest on the stock market, or what to do with the high inflation or stuff like that. But still, we're trying to build this sense of belonging for PixelAnt Games, even when working with different studios, with different partners, and for different projects.
Have you probably noticed, or what is your opinion about, being in this infamous industry with the crunch time and situations that people unfortunately burn out from a lot of responsibilities and stuff, and it kind of became like a motive for a lot of companies to just work too much and to have issues with it? How is your way to toggle and juggle and fight against the burnouts and crunch?
It is super important topic, and we started PixelAnt Games with values in mind since the beginning. and one of our values is be human and do what you love, which basically means that at work you're doing interesting projects, you're developing your skills, but after work you just rest, have a walk, collect stamps, whatever you want to do, what your hobby is. You're not working, right? And we're paying like a huge attention to that. And I'm proudly to say that after 2 years of having PixelAnt Games and having like 70 people on the studio, we haven't crunched for an hour, right? So it can be, thank you. It can be done, and I know that a lot of people and a lot of top managers within the game development studios, they keep saying, hey, game development is very hard, it's tough, you need to crunch because it's not embraceable. It is. You just need to focus on the right things, start with the values, be very much aligned with the values, and work on that on a daily basis to have it like really in the real life of the studio. And then it's doable not to crunch, right? So we don't like tolerate crunch at all.
And what about the public, and what about the state? Does the state support the gaming in your country? Is it still, thought about, oh yeah, it's just games, it's not something that people work on, but actually it's a big business with a lot of topics and stuff to do. That's why probably people also crunch, because they weren't, thinking about, the business and usual stuff. So what would you say? Is your country supportive of your work about, some wages or knowledge, experience, getting people together? What to say about it?
Well, I must say that there is like not a lot of support, and we need to like handle it by our own. Even when it comes to education and preparing people to work in the game dev industry, we need to invest as a companies to really make people ready to work, right? So it's still like a lot of things that might have been done to make things better, but right now I feel that we're on our own, basically.
So for our last question, would you say that this kind of conferences or parts where you can speak eye to eye with other people, not only during Zoom presentations, Zoom meetings, is this kind of important to see the visibility on the importance of the gaming industry and you as a company, just to find new people to be happy and just to say, okay, we are doing serious business, please not just help us, support us, and be very, very happy that actually people want to work in this industry?
Yes, I totally agree that this is super important to meet in person. And even it is very strongly related to the type of work that we're working like right now after COVID, right? So there's some tendency to work at home 100% or go to the office 100% or doing a hybrid mode. But in general, what I can see right now, the clear differences is that when you're sitting at home and working and having calls on Teams or whatever, you have very like strict and tight schedule, and there is like no space for chit chats and for having about how do you feel, what would you change about that, right? You need to plan for this. In the event like that, when people are meeting face to face, you can talk about work, or you're working but not doing the actual job, but talking about work. So we can talk about improvements, you can talk about issues, you can talk about different approaches, and it's being like done naturally, right? If we like set up a meeting and talk about that on Wednesday at 10 a.m. on Teams, it wouldn't be that natural, right? And here, because of different inspirations and meeting with a lot of people, I think it's a great value to change the industry in the right direction. That's why I attend a lot of meetings like that and events like that.
Thanks for your time. Hope you had a nice chit chat with me and that you're gonna enjoy today's party. So see you later.
Yeah, thank you very much. See you.